What's up, guys? It's a little back with another video, and you can officially vote for the All-Star starters on NBA.com. So we'll be doing that today. So how this works, if you guys have never voted for an NBA All-Star game before, you pick the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. We have three players from the front court, aka the forwards, the centers, the 3 through 5 players. Then you got the guard position, the 1 and the 2, and we will be picking 2 people from that position. Of course, same with the Eastern Conference, 2 guards and then 3 from the front court. Okay, so let's start with the Western Conference front court players. And what's cool about this is you can sort it by the most points, the most assists, the most rebounds, and they also have fantasy points, which if you're voting off fantasy points, I don't know what to do. Actually, fantasy points might be a good indicator, because although maybe someone has a really low points number, maybe they're making an impact on the defensive side of things and they're getting a ton of blocks and stuff like that. So maybe fantasy points is actually a pretty good indicator of the All-Stars. Let's just switch it back over to points for now. And right off the bat, there's a guy staring you straight in your face, Nikola Jokic, who will be getting a vote. But quickly, look at this. He's second in points with 26.5. If we go to assists, he's number 1 with 9.3. That's 2 assists ahead of this guy in second, who's LeBron with 7.3. If we go to rebounds, he's second. Bro is top 2 in every single category, even including fantasy points. He's the highest by 6. So no brainer, Nikola Jokic will be a lock to be an All-Star starter, unless of course there's an injury. If he stays healthy, he's 100% going to be one of the All-Star starters. So we will go ahead and put him as our first vote. Next up, we have some options, because we got to keep in mind, we only can pick 2 more people. So it's easy to say, oh, let's just go with KD because he's averaging the most points with 31 points per game. But then maybe you can't get somebody in like LeBron. Maybe you think LeBron and AD deserve a spot, or maybe you think Kawhi deserves a spot. Or if we scroll down, maybe there's people down here like Wemby. Wemby's averaging the most blocks in the league. I think he's averaging 3, maybe more than that. There's a guy like Sabonis also, who's not, going crazy with points, but he's getting a lot of boards. If we filter it by boards, he's third in rebounds, and he's a really good player. If we scroll, you got Sengun, who is not going to be an All-Star starter, but he's a guy that maybe could get a vote or 2. My next vote, and this might surprise some of y'all, but it's going to be Anthony Davis from the Lakers. Of course, he's averaging 24 points per game, 3 assists, and 12.6 rebounds per game. He leads the Western Conference in rebounds, and possibly the entire NBA. I'm gonna have to see when we get to the Eastern Conference, but his impact, he could really go off at any moment. And what's so special about him is his defense, his blocks, his paint presence, even his perimeter defense for a player of his size. He's probably the best perimeter defender for a player that's his, height and weight. So I'll be going with Anthony Davis for my second vote. Now for my last votes for the front court in the West, I think it's not really close, and I'm gonna be going with Kevin Durant as my last front court vote. Of course, I'd love to see LeBron James be another All-Star starter, and he might be, because I looked it up. 50% of the fan vote is what's accounted for in the total vote. So 50% of the fan, and I know a lot of fans are going to be putting LeBron as a starter. A lot, like most casuals are just, you know what I'm saying? They love LeBron. They're going to put him in a ton of All-Star ballots, but 25%, the other 25% is by the players, and 25% is by the media. That's what I'm pretty sure. That takes up the 100%. 50% is fans, 25% is players, and the other 25% is media. So I think there is a solid chance LeBron is a starter, if we're being honest, as it stands right now. And I guess he would be a starter over Anthony Davis, which there's a strong possibility for that. Do I think that that's what it should be? No, because I'm putting my vote on Anthony Davis. Okay, so we have our 3 front court players in the Western Conference set. Now it's time to pick our guards out west. And what's crazy about this is Ja Morant is the first person that pops up, and bro has only played 1 game at the time that I'm recording this. 34 points, 8 assists, 6 boards. That's what he got in the game, and he is at the top because he scored the most points, or he's averaging the most points in a 1-game sample size. Is he going to be an MVP, or not an MVP, but an All-Star? I don't think so, because he's just missed too many games. The All-Star games in what, 1.5 months, 2 months? I mean, if he gets in, that's going to be crazy. He'd have to go on a tear the next 2 months, but his name is first. So he might get some votes just because a lot of fans are going to see him first. You know what I'm saying? And if they don't know that he's only played 1 game, there's going to be some fans that are voting that aren't going to know he's only played 1 game. and they're seeing these numbers, he might get some votes, bro. That might be interesting. But off the bat, leading the Dallas Mavericks, we got Luka Doncic. I have to give him a vote. That's just a no-brainer. If you're making an all-star ballot and Luka is not one of your picks for the West guards, then I don't have to tell you. But you got to be careful because there's only 2 picks. And there's a lot of really good guards. Even if you scroll down here, Fred VanVleet's having a great year, but he's obviously not going to be an all-star starter. Who else we got? Desmond Bane. When Ja was out, he was going on an absolute tear. Anthony Edwards leading the Timberwolves to their #1 record in the entire NBA. Of course, you got SGA. You got De'Aaron Fox, who's having a great year. Stephen Curry, Devin Booker. Anthony Simons isn't going to be an all-star starter. But there's so many guys that have consideration for this vote for me. And I'm a Warriors fan, so I'm going to be as unbiased as possible. I will be giving this vote to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, because his defense. Obviously, he's a great scorer. You see he's 3rd, really he's 2nd in points per game when you talk about the Western Conference guards. He's averaging 6.4 assists per game, 5.7 rebounds, but I believe he leads the league in steals. I think he almost gets 3 a game. 2 point something, like 2.7, 2.8, something like that. I'm pretty sure he leads the league in steals. I know steals isn't the biggest of defensive metrics. In fact, it's kind of lower down, but if you watch him, he's what, 6'6". He's pretty much going to lock down whatever guard is on the other team. If he I mean, I know they put Lou Dort sometimes on the matchup, but you know what I'm saying. For his position, his size, he is a great elite defender, and I'll be giving him my vote. Although De'Aaron Fox is absolutely hooping. Curry, again, I'm a Warriors fan. I love to give him my vote. The Warriors are struggling right now. They did just get a tough win against the Celtics, but as it stands right now, I don't think Stephen Curry is an all-star starter. But when it comes February, maybe he is. Maybe the Warriors going to tear. Maybe Steph's averaging 30. Who knows? But right now, I got to go Luka, and I got to go SGA. Also, in the comments, let me know what you think of my picks. My Western Conference picks are set. We have Jokic, AD, KD, Luka, and SGA. And of course, we still have a month and a half until the All-Star game. I believe you can vote until like January 20th. So you got another month to vote. So I will probably drop another All-Star voting thing right before it ends. So I'll do an updated version. Will it be any different? I'm not sure. It probably will be. But as I'm recording this right now, I feel like I'm making the best picks possible. Now let's go to the East and let's start in the front court. And I feel like, I mean, bro, look at the options, bro. Look at the options. I think it's pretty obvious, right? You get 3 picks for this position. Notice Jaylen Brown now, because Derek White is starting. They have Derek White and Drew Holiday. Jaylen Brown's the 3. So they used to have Jaylen Brown at the 2, the shooting guard. I believe he was an all-star starter last year, I want to say. If he's not, he was very close to getting. I think he was though. But yeah, now he's a part of the front court and he has no chance of being an all-star starter. So obviously Joel Embiid is averaging 35 points per game. Let's actually see assists. He's leading in assists too. Wow, I did not expect that. 5.9 assists is the most in the whole Eastern Conference for the front court. That's actually kind of crazy. But I guess they don't really have a big, a good passing big. Pascal's pretty good of a passer, but he doesn't have the numbers. Rebounds, Embiid, bro, he's first in everything. First in everything. I've been dropping multiple videos about him. I think he's gonna win MVP unless something changes, with which a lot of things usually do. It's only been what, 25, 26 games. Things change, but he's getting a vote. He's probably gonna MVP. He's gonna be an all-star starter. Actually, I think there was a year recently where we had an MVP that wasn't an all-star starter. I forget who. It might have had to do with Embiid and Giannis. It might have been Giannis was starting and Embiid won it. That might have been last year actually, or it might have been the reverse, but I think that's what it was. So I mean, you could get MVP and not be like Giannis could, well, he's gonna be an all-star starter. But let's say that it's Tatum and Kuzma and Giannis didn't start, he could still win MVP. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're not an all-star starter doesn't mean you can't win MVP. But I'm going on a tangent. We're gonna go Embiid. Next up, it's pretty obvious. We're gonna go with Giannis with our second vote. He's averaging 35 and 11, pretty much leading the Bucks. I know Damian Lillard's starting to get hot, but Giannis is the guy there. And I think winning matters too. Like if you're putting up absolute numbers, like Kyle Kuzma, for example, he's 4th, but he's on the Wizards. They have what, 4 wins? Like, no, sorry, you cannot be an all-star starter when your team is 4-24 or whatever they are. So that's not going to be over for me. And let's just get it over with. I mean, these are the 3. These are the 3 all-star starters, barring an injury. If these three players stay healthy, this is the three starters in the East front court. I don't think anything's changing. We can revisit this in a month when once again I said I was going to make a new ballot and see if anything changes, but it's not going to. This is going to be the three. You got Bam, who was red hot, but he dealt with some injuries and he's just not putting up the numbers to get it. I mean, I don't really know who else can contest these three. Scotty Barnes has been hooping. So like, I feel like he deserves a little consideration for sure. Scotty Barnes does, but like over Tatum, not for me. I mean, not right now. We're not doing that. Mikal Bridges has been kind of, you know, under expectations to me. Pascal, you got Jimmy Butler. Franz Wagner's been hooping. As we scroll down here, like, I just don't think there's really anybody like, you know, it's just these three. It's Embiid, it's Giannis, and Tatum. And if you're making a ballot and you don't have them on it, then maybe you're just a fan of like the Magic and you have Paolo or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But if you're doing this unbiasedly, these are the three. So the Embiid, Giannis, and Tatum pick, I feel like is a no-brainer. Out west, when we talk about the guards, I think the Luka SGA pick is also kind of a no-brainer. The toughest pick so far was probably between AD and LeBron, but still I'm going AD. Now this is where it gets tough. The Eastern Conference guards, there's a lot of them. There is a lot of them. Leading the way for points is Trae Young. We got Donovan Mitchell up here, Damian Lillard. If we filter it by assists, Halliburton is number one by 1 whole assist, and then Trae Young. But after that, it falls down to 8 assists. LaMelo Ball, who's injured, so we will not be voting for him. Terry Rozier's been hooping, by the way. I mean, he might be an all-star. He really might be an all-star. I know it's very tough to be an all-star. I think there's 12 players from each conference. You know, there's not a lot of spots to go around, but Terry's been hooping with the absence of LaMelo Ball. If we go by rebounds, we got Ben Simmons. I mean, yeah, okay, rebound. We're not going to go by rebounds. We're not. We're just not. Let's just click off of that. Actually, fantasy points to see. We got Halliburton, Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell. Like I said, I think fantasy points is a really good indicator of, you know, all-star, because it kind of factors in everything, especially defensive stats, blocks, steals, efficiency. If you miss shots, you lose fantasy points. So that factors in everything. And the first guy that I'm going to give a nod to be an all-star starter is going to be Tyrese Halliburton. He's averaging the 7th most points in the Eastern Conference for guards. So, you know what I'm saying? Off first look, you're probably like, that's a little crazy. But if you've been watching the game a lot, you know, 12 assists. He has some of the best passing, some of the best vision, and just on-court awareness out of maybe anybody in the NBA. There's very few players that I'd say have better vision than him. Maybe, you know, LeBron James, or maybe like a Chris Paul, Draymond. Well, I don't know about, I mean, Draymond's a pretty good passer, but Halliburton's probably top 3 when it comes to passing and just vision and stuff like that. So I'm going to give him a nod. I know the Pacers have been struggling lately. They started red hot. They went to the in-season tournament finals as well. But yeah, we're going to go with Halliburton with our first pick. Now, we have one other pick. Trae Young would be a great pick. I know efficiency is always a bad thing with him, but I think he you know, fixed that a little bit this year. Donovan Mitchell, another great pick. Damian Lillard could be an option. Tyrese Maxey is hooping and on solid efficiency too. Efficiency, you know, you could look at points, you could look at assists, rebounds, but when there's, you know, 3-4 guys with all the same points per game, you got to start looking at other stuff. You got to start looking at efficiency. You got to start looking at their team success. You got to start looking at who's on their team. You know, there's a lot of variables here. Jalen Brunson, by the way, is shooting like insane. He's almost shooting 50% from 3. He's absolutely hooping. He deserves some consideration too. LaMelo doesn't deserve consideration. He's hurt. Cam, no. Hero, no. Rozier, no. DeMar, no. Everyone else pretty much no. Is there any outliers down here? Derek White, I would like, I want to see him in the All-Star game. Again, there's just not going to be enough spots probably, but he's been absolutely hooping. Yeah, there's just not going to be anybody down here. So we know our options. We have 1 vote remaining. I'm going to have to stop talking and genuinely think about this for a second. Okay, so I went ahead and I looked into the stats a little bit deeper. I looked at, you know, efficiencies. I looked at win shares, and actually Tyrese Maxey leads all of the options in win shares. So that's a little bit surprising. But when it comes down to it, I think there is 2 players that I've kind of narrowed it down to, maybe 3, 4. It's tough, bro. Like Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, Lillard, Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson. I mean, that's a tough choice. But the 2 that I have narrowed it down to is going to be Trae Young and Damian Lillard. And what it comes down to, I think that when we get closer to the end of January, when we get closer to the All-Star game, I think it might be Lillard. But for now, my pick is going to be Trae Young. But I do think, again, in a month from now, Lillard's numbers will turn out a little bit better. He started off rough, and he still is almost averaging more than Trae Young. But when I looked at the efficiencies, Lillard's efficiency, which is usually way better than Trae Young's, isn't really there. So I can't pick him right now. I'm really tempted to vote for Tyrese Maxey. I like Donovan Mitchell a lot as well, and Jalen Brunson. I mean, it's a tough choice. Let me know who you guys would pick. Halliburton is a for sure pick for me. He's efficient, he's smart, leads the league in assists, 25 points per game. You know what I'm saying? It's a no-brainer. But let me know, who would you guys pick as your second guard in the East? Okay, so we have my early NBA All-Star votes. We have my 10 players. We got Jokic, AD, KD, Luka, and SGA out west. And then in the East, we got Halliburton and Trae Young. Not a lot of defense right there. I believe it's going back to the West versus East format. So if this was the teams, I mean, the West is probably going to win. But overall, I mean, the West probably has the better team in general. You're gonna have LeBron coming off the bench, Steph Curry coming off the bench. Like, what is that? That's just not even fair. The West is gonna win by a lot. And then we have Embiid, we have Giannis, and we have Tatum. I also noticed, I believe all of my picks are at the top of the board when it comes to fantasy points. So fantasy points really might be a good indicator of, the right all-star picks, because it factors in everything. Like I said, make sure to sub up if you guys haven't. I've been grinding every single day on this channel, putting out videos. And let me know in the comments, what picks do you think that I made that were a little debatable, that were crazy, that you would have went a different way? I'm gonna be replying to every single comment, hearting every single comment. I appreciate y'all for watching. See y'all in the next one. Click the video on your screen right here if you haven't watched it yet.